do that, but just to give them the extra 15 minutes, and that teachers were very appreciative of that, even though I was thinking this is, I can only give them 15 minutes, they thought that was a wonderful idea. And then in middle school, I've covered Spartan Pride for every single teacher once. So since Spartan Pride's at different times this year, that actually worked to my advantage to be able to offer that break for them. Usually Spartan Pride is all at the same time, but with COVID, they've had to change that schedule. So during Spartan Pride, I was able to also provide a lesson to students while the teacher was taking a break. I provided a lesson on regulation and taught the students the hand model of the brain, taught them about coping skills. And that went over very well. I had not one single behavior issue with every class I met with, so which actually kind of surprised me a little, but they were very attentive. So that went over well, and teachers were able to have an extra break with that. Something else I've tried to do is write handwritten notes to teachers, just a positive message to put in their mailboxes. Haven't made it to every building yet, but still working on that. And then providing mental health resources and newsletters. That's something that I tried not to use the word self-care a lot. That's something I've been guilty of overusing, because sometimes when we say self-care, it just seems like one more thing that a teacher that we're asking them to do. We're asking you to put more things on your plate, but if we focus on their wellness and provide those resources and that language, I think it goes over better than saying you need to spend more time with self-care, because they don't, right now they don't have time for one more thing, and many of us might feel the same way. I also have created a virtual reset room. This is just a place where teachers can go just for calming activities, whether it's just drawing a picture or listening to calming music. And then I've coordinated with some principals on additional wellness initiatives, like for instance, Grandview. Mrs. McCann asked me to come there so that she could provide the teachers with a break, and then I was able to we had a table set up of like treats for teachers to come enjoy hot chocolate and a cookie while she was covering their classroom. So that's just some other things that we've done with that, and then what I focused on with the social emotional well-being. And then lastly, I would just like to highlight what we plan to do the rest of the school year. So beginning of the school year, focusing on teacher wellness, that's not going to go away because COVID has not gone away, so we still need to be taking care of our teachers. So don't plan to stop with the teacher wellness when January comes. But we will be introducing some more professional development. We haven't introduced a lot of new professional development because beginning of the school year just was not the time for that when there's already so many new things being placed on teachers. So as Kim mentioned, we're going to be focusing on the multi-tiered systems of support. So in the past, most of our teachers, and you might even be familiar with the academic piece of that, where we're offering interventions or coming up with interventions, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 interventions. So we haven't really put a lot of focus on the behavior and SEL side of that, so that's what we're going to be focusing on in addition to the academic piece, is focusing on what that looks like. We already have some interventions in place, but we haven't really sat down and thought about what does that look like, what's missing. So we've started the brainstorming process of that, and then we'll be creating flowcharts and steps for our teachers to go along with that, and looking at how that looks at elementary, middle school, high school, how it differs, how it's similar. So that's what's coming in the future with the multi-tiered systems of support, just really laying out what our interventions look like, and that way teachers understand as well what the steps are, and creating some teams within the buildings to look at data, behavior data, and brainstorm ways that we can help individual children. And then I'll also be doing more professional development with teachers on behavior. I had sent out a survey in one of my newsletters where it asked teachers what additional professional development they needed, and almost 80% of those that answered said they wanted more on how to address behaviors in the classroom. So that's where my focus is going to be. And then again, additional wellness initiatives, and then focusing on, we have 2 buildings that have a reset room. And if you were here last school year, Grandview came and talked a little bit about their turnaround room. So we're trying to change the name of that to Reset Room because we have another building that has a room like that now as well, and there might be more in the future. But if you think of Reset, this is where we're teaching our children, if we're teaching about the brain, we want them to go reset their amygdala and reset their brain so that it's regulated again. So we're trying to use that language with them so that they know that these rooms are a safe place and that they're just going to reset. They're not in trouble, it's just a place that they can reset and regulate. So working more on that this school year to make sure that both the rooms that we have are working in the same way, that teachers are using them in the right way, and that the language is the same. So that's the focus for the rest of the school year. And I just want to close with just share something that I've shared in a recent newsletter that I think we could all probably benefit from. When it gets tough, turn around and look how far you've already come. So I think if we're being, I know if I'm being honest with myself, when August started, I did not think we'd still be dealing with all this COVID now, or that it'd still be at the same level or even worse or whatever it is. But I think sometimes it's easy to get discouraged to think, how much longer are we going to be wearing this mask? How long are we going to be doing this? And for our teachers especially too, I want them to know that, they've made it all the way to December. And we might not have thought that was possible in August. So sometimes it's easy to look at how far we have to go without sometimes stopping and turning around and looking how far that we've come. So I just wanted to highlight that, and I think we could all probably benefit from just looking at our accomplishments and looking how far we've come, how far we've made it. We've made it to December, we can keep going. So that's all that I have. Does anybody have any questions? I know I tend to talk fast and have a lot to say sometimes, but.
You're just doing a wonderful job, and we love what you're doing, and it's great for our students and our staff. I mean, what a great resource for our staff, because typically we think of your services as for our students or for staff to utilize for their students, not for themselves. So that's a wonderful piece you're adding.
We couldn't be more fortunate that this started before everything else started, because at least we had the procedures, we had something in place, because obviously with what has gone on with COVID, every issue that you're dealing with is exacerbated beyond belief with students and staff alike. So we're very, very fortunate to have started the program prior, so we've got it in place and we have a good starting spot, so we're not groping to try to find ways to help our kids.
I just have one question. Do you or do schools distribute something to parents so they know some of the language, so they know if their child comes home? And
That's not something I think we've thought about, but I think in the past, we had like monthly counselor newsletters, but I think that would be a good.
I just didn't know if
Just
parents
that, 'cause
are
I
aware
have-
when their child comes home and says, I went to the reset room, and they're
Right.
like, uh-oh.
Yeah, and I know they do communicate, they do make phone calls with that, but
Yeah.
I think that, yeah.
That's on an individual basis.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you, Ashley.
You're welcome.
So appreciate it.
Thanks, Ashley.
You're welcome.
All right. So now that we're all calm and we're looking forward because we've come this far, I'm going to seek a motion to approve the agenda as submitted and amended.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Andy. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Dennis, put Dennis, he said it first, all right. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand, opposed, same sign, motion carries. Patron comments on agenda items, seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda, which includes the approval of minutes from the regular business meeting of 11/10/20, personnel report, retirements, resignations, leaves of absences, etc., the approval of the November 2020 claims 57833 and 58044 through 58044, the appointment of Brian Hensley to the Fayette County Area Planning Commission, end of year business office procedures, and a donation of $842.50 from New Heights Christian Church to Everton Elementary to be used to help with meet the needs of students. So, I would like to seek a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Madam President, I'll make that.
Thank you, Chris. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Mark. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now move on to the action items. I know Mr. Harris isn't here, so Scott, are you taking
Yes, I
over for
am.
the personnel report?
I'm the HR director tonight. We have several recommendations for employment. Classified staff, Apollinar Amora, media assistant, CHS. Stephanie Browning, high school education assistant, high school, Head Start education assistant, Little Spartans preschool. You didn't know you had a Head Start at CHS now, did you? Joey Birch, part-time custodian, Eastview Elementary, and Larry Lucas, bus driver, transportation department. And then 2 extracurricular positions, Summer Rosenberger, 7th grade white basketball coach, and Zane Spurlock, varsity assistant swim coach at CHS.
All right. Thank you for that. I'd like to seek a motion to approve the personnel report.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Lori. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ann. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approval of food service equipment purchase.
Yes, that's me again. Randy Harris mentioned last month, with the food service program with Chartwells, There are rules with the state of Indiana with our account balance and with our, how much we maintain in our operating expenses. And sometimes people don't realize with grants and different federal funding mechanisms, there are times when you have a threshold of what your balance can be. So we had some equipment that we were planning to replace. We are moving that timeline up a little just because that's what the state said we had to do. But there are 4 items that we are wanting to purchase and have installed, including a dishwasher replacement at Carnersville Middle School, tilt skillet installation at Carnersville High School, and then walk-in outdoor freezers at Eastview and Everton. So those are 4 purchases, close to $90,000 that we will be using from our food service funds for equipment that we are replacing or installing for our buildings at this time. So seek your approval for that.
Thank you. I'd like to seek a motion to approve the food service equipment purchase.
I so move.
Thank you, Ann. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Andy. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approval of the professional service agreement, Mr. Collins.
Thank you, Mr. President, Board. Since January of 17, we have entered into an agreement with Michelle Cooper, with Lewis and Kappas law firm, and we would like to continue that partnership for 2021. Michelle is one of the most respected school law attorneys in the state and in the Midwest, and this is now our 5th year, and she's not raising her rates, and all the terms remain the same as they did in 2017, which is unusual in this day and age, but she's a great benefit for us and a great resource to navigate through all the different challenges we have legally. So I would like to recommend that we continue this agreement for 2021 with Michelle Cooper.
Thank you for that. And I'd like to seek a motion to approve Michelle's professional service agreement.
I so move.
Thank you, Ann. Do I hear a 2nd?
second that.
Thank you, Lori. Any discussion?
She's fantastic.
Yes, she is.
She does a great job.
She's
so
been
far.
she's been such a blessing to the corporation.
Mhm, she has. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Resource Center facility update.
All right, I have a couple of discussion items. I'll just jump in with both here. The first, the Resource Center, we have vacated that building. The last folks who were there were with our East Central Service Center, and they have moved to a new location in the Ivy Tech office space, the old D&M plant, and very happy there. The accessibility, they have windows in their rooms and offices that that is managed by the Economic Development Group here in Connersville, and they have really worked well with the Service Center to provide them an agreement that works within their budget, and also been very accommodating with the space. So I'm on the board, I'm the president of that board for the Service Center, so I talk with the director regularly, and they're very happy there. So with that, as we've shared multiple times, the Service Center was our only occupant, and with them moving, that building is empty. And a vacant building starts going into disrepair even faster. We are maintaining basic services, but at this point, we will be winterizing that if we don't have any needs. We thought we may need to use it for some quarantining for some staff and administrators, so we do have Wi-Fi technology still established in that, but Brian Hensley and his crew is ready to winterize the plumbing because there's a lot of work in excess of $500,000 that would need to happen for that. I did share with all the county and city officials if there's any interest in that building from another governmental agency, if they would like to have that building, given to them or with some arrangement since they are a governmental agency. One gentleman expressed interest in looking at it, and we have not heard anything since. We've had 2 people locally who have they've contacted me interested, but they don't have the financial means or the not-for-profit status to do anything with it. And I was trying to meet with one of the gentlemen, and he's never gotten back to me. I reached out to him a couple of different times here this fall. And I just think that the finances of it and securing a 50, the not-for-profit status was, after I explained that process to him a little, I don't know if I scared him off, I didn't intend to, but I just wanted him to be sure that, you know, these are some of the things you would need to be able to do. So, this is just a discussion topic, there's no board decision here, I just need some guidance from the board as, you know, we conduct our business here in public, what your thoughts are, and provide me some direction with next steps, whether that be, you know, do we look at just winterizing it and letting it set and provide basic maintenance to it? I do worry about vandalism as the building sits there, and the liability with that. Just making sure that no one does get into the building and, you know, damage it more or.
What was the quote on tearing it down?
Just an unofficial quote, we checked with Wolf Construction, they had done some other demolition for us with the two county schools a few years ago, and they estimated $175,000 for full demo, clearing the ground, putting grass seed and straw down.
That's a lot better than what I thought.
About 175, and they said winter is a better time because the heavy equipment people are not as busy when the ground freezes, but they can still demo and do things like that in the winter, so he believes we'd have better quotes and bids in the winter versus the spring and summer.
Financially, is that something we could look into doing now, or is it something we need to postpone for another year?
You know, we're gonna spend about $20,000 a year just to let it sit empty with insurance and basic utilities and having the metering set up and turned on, so we're looking at that kind of cost.
So next year it's gonna be a minimum of $195,000, because their price is probably gonna go up.
Probably, you never know, it's just hard to tell, but
Yeah.
that was an estimate he provided about a month ago,
Yeah.
just without doing anything official, he just
Yeah,
eyeballed
give
it.
or take 10-15% on
Yeah.
that, so I mean, you know.
And there are certain requirements, like you said, for somebody to buy that?
Yes, I mean, at this point, it's not a school building per se, so we could go through the same process we went through with Orange and Alquina and have a public hearing, if those of you on the board might recall, and we had it at middle school auditorium, and there were 4 or 5 individuals who presented ideas, but yet no one presented a viable plan. That was the hang-up from what I can recall then. Dr. Hodges, you know, led that, but that's what I recall, there was no viable plan presented. And so we extended it out another period of time to give people time, but the problem is coming up with the funds to take on a building like that. That's the biggest challenge in today's.
Scott, do we have any idea what the property's worth without the building setting on it?
I do not. I could get,
I mean, you know what, I'm,
just the land, a block of land.
just the property might be
I would
worth more
think
to
the
us with
property-
the building gone than the way it
Would
is
you
now, of
know,
course.
have any idea?
I would have to research that somehow
Yeah.
too, you know.
The-
with the
That's some information we
location,
can
all
see.
It's
One
a
of-
pretty nice piece of property and a nice
Flat.
location.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah.
is.
Makes you wonder if it would be more attractive to a business close to them, to that area that would be interested once that's done, once it's down.
I've thrown that out to businesses around there, and
Right,
there's not an interest right now.
even after, that's what I mean, once it's gone, I can see where it could be, well, hey, I'm interested again, so.
We might find a business who would want to purchase some of that for parking or something.
Could you, again, if the building were gone, could you subdivide it into lots and sell it as home, you know?
I think we could, I mean, that would be, Lori would know more about the real
What's-
estate. I haven't investigated that, but I would think that.
Because then I think you
Would
could
there be
do
a
better
zone-
than
would there be a
selling
zoning
That
it.
would be a
issue?
possibility.
The zoning issue, I'm not for sure. That's out of my knowledge.
Yeah,
see, that
because
would happen.
that's a, I've spoken to one of the people who's spoken to you
Okay.
about getting a group together, and quite honestly, I spoke to him this last week, and he said it's COVID that's caused the issues. It's a group of people that would like to do something with that building, much as the people in Laurel did with the
Right.
old Laurel
Same
gym.
gentleman, yes.
Yeah, and so they're getting instruction from Gus Adams in Laurel as to the process that needs to be gone through. And back before COVID hit, it was looking pretty good, but the COVID has just put a halt to absolutely everything that they want to do. They're still incredibly interested in doing it, but the financial insecurity that's been caused across the board by the COVID situation has just made it very difficult for them. They would love to get it together. The group of people are very committed to doing something for the youth of Fayette County. It would be, their plan, if they can get the funding, would be to use it for an athletic facility, use the gym, and then use the other parts of it as office space for small not-for-profits or something like that, to offer it at a very reasonable cost. And what didn't scare them was how much it was gonna cost a year to really maintain it, because apparently they had heard from the people in Laurel that that was not completely out of line. I just hate to see something. I know these people that are involved with it, and I've known them for a long time, and they're just very frustrated because they thought they had a pretty good plan, and then the world changed drastically for everybody, and it just threw a big monkey wrench into all their plans. They would still like to do them, but financially, as you said, it's just a very difficult time right now, because some of their investors are not sure how much they're going to have to invest because of the overall situation.
It will definitely take money to get it up and going.
Oh, yeah.
And then the parking lot's also collapsing, where the old original high school, that was Junior High South, when it burned, the powers that be at that time decided to cover over and bury a lot of that foundation. So there's some issues in that parking too that would have to be.
It's sinking now.
Yeah, it is, and that's what's causing the water penetration in the lower level, and that wall, the foundation wall's collapsing there along the Grand Avenue side of that building, so.
Scott, we kind of started this process a little over a year ago, is that right? I'm trying to find somebody to sell it, take it on, roughly a year plus.
About 8 to 9 months ago.
Oh, 8 to 9 months, okay.
Yeah, about approximately when I started, well, it's maybe, I guess it was last winter, I don't remember the date.
That's okay.
Look at my notes, but yeah, it's been a while.
I think we've done our due diligence in trying to find somebody else to take over the building and revamp it, do whatever's necessary. My inclination would be, let's just say it's $200,000 to tear the thing down. And it's costing us $20 a year for maintenance, upkeep, insurance, all that stuff. You're looking at a 10-year ROI, so it's almost like it's not going to get any cheaper. As much as it pains me to say let's tear down a building, what value is it to the community? And plus, it's costing the taxpayer $20,000 a year to maintain it. I think the writing's on the wall in my mindset. I think that if we could find somebody to tear it down for that price, I know that's an expense that it's tough to incur at this time, but what other option do we have? What really serious viable option do we have other than to tear it down? And I don't know.
Short of a group like that who would be able to come up with the funding and grants, that's the tough part, I think,
Yeah.
right now for them, because I think
Yeah.
the intent's good.
Well, and also too, is there going to be, did we abate all of the asbestos in that building a few
That
years
would
ago?
be-
Because when we did the renovation at the middle school, we thought we had all the
Right.
asbestos out of there. And then when they started tearing things up, we did not have all the asbestos out of there, which is gonna push the cost of the tearing it down way up because of just the procedures that you have to go through not to put that asbestos in the.
That would
Yeah.
have to be thoroughly, that would be part of the bidding process if we
Okay.
put it out there. There could be some tiles,
Yeah.
the old floor tiles that were covered over with carpet, they're fine as they are, but stirring them, there is a process that would add some cost, but it probably wouldn't be extreme if it's just the tiles. I believe all the other asbestos has been taken care of.
Okay. Well,
But that would be up to them that would have to be part of the price, for sure.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Can we get bids and then go from there and see what what they come in at? Because, that's just a roundabout figure.
Yeah.
I don't
There's
know.
nothing firm on that, that's just an
Right.
estimate.
Right, because if it was up to 200,000,
Because
or
we
if
can't
it was
get official
down.
bids without going through the process with a request for bid. So really, that was just an eyeball of this gentleman, just as a courtesy to us.
But I'm sure we have to go ahead and winterize it anyway, so from now, whether we get, 'cause
Yeah.
it's that time.
And that buys some time, a little bit of time, not a whole lot, for anybody else, and then we have to do what we have to do. at that.
If we're gonna move now, we probably need to do it here in the next couple of months to take advantage of the pricing, I would think, because when we get into spring and summer, prices will be higher.
Yeah,
Or
they're
else
gonna be
we kick
busy.
it down the road to next winter
And you're another
and
20,000.
be here again. And, you know, my hope would be to find someone who would be willing to take it on, but you're gonna have to spend money on it with roof
Right.
and heating and some foundation work for sure. It's gonna be hundreds of thousands of dollars to make it safe. And then it's the accessibility piece. It is not handicapped accessible now,
Well, I think the other thing is too, that it's built below grade.
is what?
It's built below grade. You're gonna fight water constantly. I mean, you're never, that's a battle you're not gonna win unless some major architectural structuring, something else beyond my skill set. I mean, it just looks like it's to me. I mean, I hate, I'm not trying to be a negative person about it, but it's just, comes a realistic time that you just gotta, I mean, I just,
I just want to avoid any, I was sitting at those meetings when, about Alpina and Orange getting torn down, and the dissent in the community was pretty bad. And there was a lot of dissension, and I think this open forum is really good if people are watching on Channel 3. We're talking about this, it's nothing going on behind your back, we're really trying to be as transparent as possible about it, but this is kind of where we are, because there was just a lot of, well, Chris, you were there, and there was a lot of really negative feelings about the Alpina and Orange situation. When the schools closed, and then it kind of got better, and then when the buildings were torn down, it was really, really bad again. And I think we want to try to avoid as much of that as we can by being this transparent and just saying, look, people, this is where we are financially, this is why we have to do this. And I don't think there's the emotional attachment to Junior High South that there was to Alpina and Orange, but that's the old high school, so could
The
be.
the auxiliary part was, there's not an architecture, like our middle school auditorium and the architecture of,
There's not.
there's
No.
not anything
No.
much endearing
No.
architecturally to that. It's a block building that
Yeah,
has settled and has a
Yeah.
little bit of smell to it. But what I worry is, the reflection on our school district with an abandoned building and people, if another group takes it on and takes care of it, that's good, but if they don't,
yeah.
people will be pointing their finger back at Fayette
Yeah.
County Schools for
That's
not taking
right.
care of the building,
Yeah.
even though it's not ours.
True.
I mean, we took that from a building out east of us, an old school building that used to house our special ed services, if you know which one I'm talking about. And we would take complaints about that, is it's not our building, somebody else owns it. So that's my other worry is, I think back growing up here, where Wendy sits today, there was a grand old school there, and then, the 5th Street, the 8th Street schools, the 30th Street schools, those were beautiful old buildings. And so it's a decision that is just, I think, life, that sometimes buildings age themselves out.
And it's not a beautiful old
It's
building.
not-
No,
It's
I
it's
agree
an
with
addition
Andy.
to a beautiful old building that burned, basically.
I agree with what Andy said tonight, and I still want to make the point that I think it's worth more to us with the building gone and try to get rid of the property that way than try to deal with it with the building standing.
I don't think you're gonna have, I agree, yeah, I don't think you're gonna have any takers knowing, even if the property itself, with the building on it like that, they're looking back and saying, geez, that's a $200,000 expense as soon as I buy the property, And I certainly get what, Mrs. Kirschner's saying, you wanna do your, you don't wanna have that, the townspeople upset with us for tearing down another building. I get that, and especially it's probably a little more sentimental with Alpina and Orange because those serve communities,
Right.
especially, but you gotta do what's best. And I think in this case, it's, we've got, the beautiful field house that we built, so we got plenty of, athletic space there. Not needing the gym, of course, now that, East Central has found another location, it's better than what they had. I just don't see a lot of positives for waiting another year in hopes of trying to find somebody else, because then you think, okay, well, we waited a year to try to find somebody else to come up with grant money for this thing. And nobody's really, I'm not saying they're not, but I'm just saying chances are they may not, and then you just spend another $20,000, roughly. And my recommendation would be to solicit for some bids. That's my recommendation. I don't know whether the rest of the board members stay.
I would concur, yeah.
Yeah, I think we need to do that and really draw the line and say, look, we're gonna have to have hard and fast, a deadline here, because we just can't afford, not to do this at this particular point in time. And that would be unfortunate if the other people couldn't get it together, but that happens, so.
And we also have to look at, you know, if another one does, thinking about this winter, if that parking lot's starting to fall in, what's the winter gonna do on top of that? Plus
Yeah.
everything else.
It's been a long-term
So
issue
there's-
there,
So there's another cost that they would have to, on top of taking care of that building, take care of the parking lot, so cars don't fall into a sinkhole. So, I'm gonna.
The zoning piece, who would you recommend talking to there, Lori, or is that somebody you could talk, find out, what could we do with that land
I could
legally?
find
as a-
out who the
Okay,
connection could be on that, definitely.
okay, if you could let me know,
Yes.
I could get some
Sure.
information for the board. We could also offer a time like we did with the other buildings and have organizations or not-for-profits could submit plans. I mean, if you want to go that route too, just to give groups a chance while we're getting bids for
I'm perfectly
demolition.
fine with that.
Yeah.
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 But with a short turnaround like them.
Yeah.
Like I said, this has been going on, I'll have to look at my calendar, but it may have been February, January, I
Well,
can't remember, so it's been almost a year.
We knew, though, that East Central was gonna be out by the 1st of July.
Yes,
Yeah, so I think when you
and I
first.
gave them a 6-month notice on
Yeah.
that, so I guess it has been about a
Yeah.
year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, would you say that you fairly solicited for, I mean, you said you've already talked to a couple city and county officials.
I just sent letters to the
Okay.
mayor, to city council, county commissioners, county council, and one gentleman from one of those groups came and looked at the building, and that was the end of it, pretty much. I think that they're in the same position, the funds, they don't have the funds to take that on. I think there was some interest by one or two gentlemen.
Yeah.
It's the reality. Coming up with the funds to make it safe and accessible is their challenge. So this is helpful. It provides me some direction. So Lori, if you can
Sure.
check on zoning of
Yes.
that, because you're right, the property may be worth more that way too, a block of land right there.
well,
in Grand.
all of the things right there are basically zone commercial, because you've got the funeral home, which is kind of, the funeral homes, the way that one is kind of a mixed-use zoning situation.
Yeah.
And then you've got residential completely on the other side, but on that side of Grand Avenue, you have mixed use of residential and commercial. The flower shop used to be, and the beauty shop, and the funeral home, and a couple of other things. So that would be something that would need to be looked into.
And then we can prepare just solicit bids and advertise that too, just to see what the demolition cost would be. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Sounds
You're
good.
perfect. Thank you for that direction. The last is Andy's board seat, Dr. Yarian. And I just wanted to be sure that you all are updated on the process with that. So until Dr. Yarian resigns via written letter to the county clerk and the board president copy, you're remaining in the current position. You could remain in that
Definitely.
indefinitely.
Until the
Actually,
next
until the next
election.
election, if you would like to do that. But if you do choose to resign at some point, the board has 30 days after Andy's last day of service on the board to fill that. So I think that'll depend on what your decision is. But then at that point, the 30-day timeline starts, and then just what our board policy and what the guidelines are with the state. I talked to Lisa Tanzel, who's attorney with the Indiana School Board Association, and I also talked to Michelle Cooper, obviously. But Michelle, and Lisa work closely together. So Lisa has written some legal briefs and things on it, so I contacted Lisa, that's part of our service with ISBA as well, and some guidance for the public and for the board to hear. The board is not legally required to advertise a notice concerning the vacancy. However, in board policy, Fayette County School Board Policy 1.10, it is recommended that we do advertise that. When or if the notice about the opening is posted, we would do so on our webpage and in the local newspaper. And we would also include in that notice that the board retains the right to reject all applications. That is your right as a legally elected board to do that. The board must conduct interviews of the candidates or applicants in a properly advertised public meeting. So if we have 3 applicants, the board would interview in a public meeting. So that would be something that some people may not be aware of. They would need to come in here and be in a public meeting to do that. And then the board would fill that vacancy in a public meeting with a vote. And because Andy could not vote at that point in that, would have to be a supermajority of 4 votes in the positive for any of the applicants to be placed on the board. In board policy 1.09, for prospective board members, they must reside within the district from which he or she is to be elected at least 1 year prior to the application. And then they cannot be an employee of Fayette County School Corporation, a paid employee, and they need to be a legally registered voter in Fayette County. So those are things we can confirm, but those are the prerequisites for anyone who might be interested in seeking that position if Andy decides to vacate that position and resign.
So Scott, where do we go if there's no applicants?
We keep Andy.
Well,
I mean, we just had an election and there were no applicants.
I know.
Yeah.
The board ultimately has the right to select someone. It has to be done in a public meeting. So if there are no applicants, it really does come down to keeping Andy on.
We just won't let you go.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
won't let you go.
Yeah.
Or, you know.
But he's
that would be a point.
already, I mean, we're talking, whenever Andy turns in that letter, I was gonna say, I really don't wanna wait until his last day,
No.
because then we have another, even though we have 30 days, then that seat isn't filled till the next month, so we miss out on, or that person misses out on opportunity.
Right.
My experience, of course, my very first time on the board, I was appointed and went through that whole process. I know,
So did I.
okay, and we've had a couple of those occur, so we're familiar with that process, and there were always, people ended up
Yes, there was.
having interest, so,
And I'm optimistic there would be.
yeah.
Sometimes people just don't want to run for
Yeah.
election.
Campaign.
That they would
There's a
be
fear
more
of
than willing
election, and it's
Right.
to
right,
fill.
intimidating to some people, but yet there's,
I don't want to do the campaign.
I haven't spoken with anybody that's, interested, in the position itself, but I haven't been very vocal about it either, but
Right.
it's, I would like to think that there are plenty of people out there, especially within my district, our district, there's pretty dense population of
Yeah.
people.
You're talking about Connersville.
Yeah,
City of
District
Connersville.
3, yeah, so it's, that people would jump in and, want to contribute, so.
I would think that whenever Andy submits that letter and we have that date, that even if it's not until February or whenever, that we let the public know, either through the newspaper, or through your app, the app we have, whatever, even though applications might not be taken for another 30 days or whatever, because I'm not sure, does it give a timeline when you have to accept applications?
Well, you do not have to wait until his last day or the
Okay.
last 30 days. You can fill it more quickly, but that person can't officially be
Serve
seated in
until
and
his
sworn
term
in
is over.
until, so let's say Andy resigned February 28th, then effective March 1st would be the first date, but we would have to, the board would vote on him or her publicly with a supermajority, 4 votes, and then we would swear that person in. Similar to what the folks who ran again this time, you will be sworn in at the January meeting again when we reorganize. So that would happen, so my hope would be that that's how it would work out, so that person would just automatically step in the day after Andy's last day officially. So that would be, yeah, we could post it at your discretion whenever the board wants to go ahead and put that out there. But we can't do anything until there is an opening, which is when you have formally
Right, so I
submitted
would
that
say
letter to
once
the court.
Andy submits his letter, then I think, I mean, we're publicly announcing that this is likely going to take place, so that
Right.
people can begin to start thinking about it. I mean, we are in the middle of the holiday season, people may not
Well,
wanna,
and Andy, you let us know early on that was not your, it was not your intention to do this, so
Right.
it shouldn't, it's not gonna come as a great surprise to anybody. So,
I just want to be sure that all that's communicated here in the meeting,
Right.
so you know what the requirements are. So really, it's at the board's discretion if you direct my office to post that notice,
do they write a
1st
letter?
of January.
What do they,
When someone makes application, they would submit a letter to the board president showing their interest during that time period.
okay,
And then the board can meet in executive session to review the applicants, but they
Prior
can't
to
interview
the
or make
interview.
any decisions in that meeting. All that has to be conducted in public.
is that prior to the interview, or is that after the interview? That the board would meet in private?
You could, if you have more than 3
applicant.
applicants, you can meet there, or you can meet to this, but you cannot discuss attributes of the candidates or anything, or make any, Andy or Chris couldn't say, well, I want this person. It would, all that has to be conducted in public, as we do with all of our other business, so yes,
So we'd have to establish those meetings, I mean, because.
we would have to,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
so. And in that meeting too, you can exclude if there's more than 3, you may exclude, but you have to have at least 3 if there are more than 3 who apply. That's part of the legal statutes with that as well.
so I think we'd have to see how many applications we got, and then if we got more than 3, I just want to be clear on this, so, again, would we meet ahead of it to say, oh, we've got 6 applications, we need to review because we're allowed to throw some out, right? Or
Yeah, you can
technically, I
review
don't like
an
the wording, but-
executive and discuss, but you can't have deep discussions about who the best candidate is or make any predetermined decisions on who that person would be. But
Then
you
we
can
do
go
the
over the
interview.
letters, and, the board president would control that conversation as far as,
Right.
these are the people, but we can't say we want this person, or we think this would be a better, it's more of just, neutrally listening to the attributes of each and reading their background and why do they want to serve in that position. And then in a public meeting, they would come in to interview.
Okay,
I'm checking my notes, make sure that's all.
and then they would leave that interview, public meeting's over, and then we have another public meeting where we make the decision in
Right.
public? Okay,
Yeah, typically you would,
they'd be short little.
right, and you would have just everything that you decide and discuss about the person that you're going to select has to be done in public and
Okay.
yeah. And so typically, according to Lisa Tanzel, what happened is the board, let's say there are 3 individuals who come in and interview separately, then the board would take a recess of a week or several days to think about it and make it, for you each to do that individually, not
Right.
discussing together, and then you
Right.
come back into the meeting and discuss strengths of each one and who you feel is the best fit, and then somebody would bring a nomination,
Okay,
a second, close nominations, that same formal Robert's Rules of Orders process.
okay.
And you would need a 4 out of 6 votes for a person. Yeah, so all that's conducted in
Alright.
public, so,
Thank you. Now we know where we stand, and we'll let Andy make his decision about when he submits his letter, and then we can decide.
and if he doesn't submit one, then he'll just keep joining us.
All right.
Okay, there you go.
Tuesday night date, it's once a month, Tuesday night date night.
Alright.
Okay. All right, thank you for those discussion items. Public comments, persons wishing to make the board aware of suggestions, ideas, or comments may address the board at this time. Comments involving personnel or students must be discussed in private. Seeing none, we will move on to superintendent's discussion group reports.
I do have one item here that I think will fit here, as we're putting a mask back on. Mark sits on our calendar committee, has been a board representative for a few years.
Long time.
Does an admirable job. And that committee's made up of parents at different grade levels and teachers and support staff and administrators. So we were contacted by a parent, a couple weeks ago, Cindy, 3 weeks ago, about the Fayette County Free Fair set their date for the 2021 fair, the first week of August, which is when school starts for Fayette County Schools and has since I've been back. And we weren't consulted with, we didn't have a date when we made this decision. The board approved our calendar March 10th of this year for next school year. So it really presents a dilemma for us because we will be bringing teachers in on Monday and Tuesday of Fair Week and kids come in Wednesday.
Oh, no.
And
So the
it's-
fair is basically a week later.
Than what it has been. I asked Kim because she's been very involved in 4-H over the years, and it's, in the past 7 years, I went back that many years, it's always, we followed suit with our calendar committee. So I'm just concerned because this is putting us in a bad place that really wasn't our creation. And as much as I love the fair, and my grandfather was a lifelong farmer in Columbia, and my kids were in 4-H, my wife helped with 4-H and was in 4-H. I guess I just need a little, just want to make you aware, we will be reconvening our calendar committee for the 22-23 calendar this winter, probably in February, but at this point, if we move our start date a week later, our first semester is already 2 days shorter. It's 88 days versus the 90 that our goal is, so if we move it a week later, we're going to be at 83 days first semester.
We'll be in essence where we are this year.
Which, yeah.
Yeah, and the argument has always been they wanted to get the high school things done before Christmas. My thing would be, let's see how it goes this year with having it after Christmas, because we used to do that years ago. And then we went to the before Christmas and the argument was always made that the impact of having that time off during Christmas break impacted kids as far as their final exams and that kind of thing was concerned. So with us not having our semester end now till what, January 13th, because we started a week. We started a week late. I just foresee incredibly negative blowback from the community as a whole, because there are a few sacred cows in Fayette County, and one of them is the Fayette County Free Fair. And if we have kids that are showing animals, and when we tried to do this once before, it was really bad. The people were incredibly upset because the kids are showing their animals during Fair Week. How did they get out of school?
I just didn't know, I just thought that it would be good to have a conversation with the fair board, just to understand what prompted them to have to
Change.
move.
Yeah, why did
Absolutely.
they? Yeah.
Because,
And I
and I
am
thought
going
their
right to
schedule was
that.
always
Yes.
based on when the state fair was,
Yeah.
so those
Yes.
kids could go
Right.
right from the
Right.
county
Yeah,
fair
Yeah,
to
it's
the
a
state
state
fair.
fair.
So I don't know, state fair might have been delayed.
Well, the
May.
state, we didn't have a state fair this year.
Yeah.
Well,
So, it's probably
Yeah, what triggered it?
Well, I just
a
wanted
domino effect.
Right, and I guess for me, this isn't really our issue that we created here.
No, but we have to live with it.
And so do we dictate our schedule around a decision made in November for the fair? That's what, I just want this is just an open discussion, but I thought I'd better make you aware because this has crossed my plate here. We were made aware of it by a phone call.
Just in November, you said?
Yeah, it was
Or-
right just before Thanksgiving,
Oh,
wasn't it?
okay.
Right before Thanksgiving, so I am going to contact the Fayette County Free Fair Board and just make them aware of the
Yes.
challenges, because, short of shortening fall break and Thanksgiving break, or shortening Christmas break, or winter break, we would be ending the first semester in the second week of January, probably.
Well-
So.
When is the beginning of Christmas break in '21? What's the last day of school or whatever?
The 17th, so it's a week before Christmas, that's the way it
Does
falls.
Christmas
and
fall
it's
on a,
Saturday.
Saturday.
Could we do
Oh.
could we do a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? We've done that before, we've gotten out on the 22nd,
23rd.
we've got on the 22nd, the last day of school has been the 22nd of December many times. So we could have done a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so that takes care of the 3 days of it right there. So there could be a lot of juxtaposing going on as far as the calendar, but I don't know why the Fair Board did what they did.
Well, I think that's the next step. I think I would tell you, Scott, probably contact the Fair Board and just see what they say.
I just want to make you aware that
Yeah.
this is something we may be looking at down the road with board approval to change that, or we keep it the same and ask them to change it,
Oh, yeah.
to be consistent with what's been done in the past.
Yeah.
Mark, do you have any
I don't know
thoughts
how soon
for
they
being
can
on that
sign
committee?
their.
Well, not only being on that committee, but being in 4-H my whole life, and, you know, I think, what if they change it to the next week someday? I mean, I'd be really curious to know their reasoning. It's always been that last week of July, flip over, I have no clue, I'm really interested to see what they have to say.
Well, I will contact
And how
them.
much they've already consigned, like have they gotten their,
Right.
their midway rides already? Have they booked those
I have
and?
no idea, I don't
Yeah.
know.
I'm glad you got a phone call.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been really fun to hear like in March.
It's actually pretty nice of them.
So,
We'll go with it.
just want to make you aware, it's just something
Yeah.
that came across, and the fair is a sacred thing in Fayette County, and
Yes.
I love it too, so I think we all
Well,
do.
so many of our kids participate in 4-H, and it's such a positive educational thing. And basically, you're saying, okay, academics are here and you gotta go back to school, but you've worked all year on your 4-H projects, and now you have to work around your school schedule to show them and to do all these kinds of things. And I just don't like the message that sends. I don't like what the Fair Board did particularly either, without kind of letting us know, but like Mark, I'm real curious to see why they made that change.
And by then, these kids are so used to working around schedules, they may handle it without any problem at all.
Well, but the absentee problem becomes a real problem, because the kids don't come to school. Is it excused? Is it unexcused? It creates a attendance not nightmare. We used to even have to deal with it with kids that were showing at the state fair once we started to school, and that's a much lower number of kids that are participating in the state fair as they do in the county fair. So, but that was always an issue, kids showing stuff at the state fair and having to miss school, that it did, in essence, just started.
Well, I'm not trying to throw us into any political mess here, but at the same time, I'm here to advocate for our schools first and the education of our kids, and we've done our part in planning this well in advance. So I guess that for me is my biggest
Yeah.
disappointment, that we weren't
That-
given any consideration.
Which I think is a good
Or
heads up
maybe
for
we
them
were.
too.
I
So
don't
whenever
know.
you have a conversation with them, to let them know, you know, we
Yeah, the
set this
ramifications,
calendar
yeah.
a
And the
year
problem is,
ahead.
We set the calendar, and I push really hard on our other 5 districts that feed into
Oh,
the
that's
career
right.
center, that it's a domino
Yes.
effect now, and they're not gonna be happy.
Oh,
I can tell you that these sending districts for the career center are not gonna be happy that they're gonna be
More
bumping the start of
ammunition, yeah.
school a week later. Because
Mhm.
Yeah.
I pushed on them to
Oh,
get the
my,
fall break
yeah.
and spring break
That's-
dates, you know,
Wow.
and they've been really great, their boards have been doing that in the last few years. So it's a domino effect for us, because it's more than just the start.
Well, and the Fayette County Free Fair typically is one of the latest county fairs in the state to begin with.
It is.
Most of them are in, well, Wayne and Rush counties are like end of June, first part of July.
So there's more than just that. And so
Mhm.
I am going to reach out to them and see if that's something they can move, but if we may be confronted with that, and then the career center piece is a big issue, because they have to get their days in for the programs.
But we could possibly have a little flexibility if we can move Christmas break. Not have the 17th be the last day, because like I said, we've been in school on the 22nd many, many, many times over the years. It's not terribly popular, but
But then those other schools will have to move those
Yeah.
5 days too, and that's gonna be the hard part.
Yeah.
There are some
Hard part.
boards, I don't know if they will want to consider that or not, so.
Yeah, I would say let's just call our fair board, and I
Exactly.
think the fact that they notified you is obviously they're cognizant of the fact of when our school starts.
No, it wasn't them that notified
No,
Scott, it was a
had
parent.
to make us aware
Oh,
of concern
okay.
that the
Oh,
fair
maybe-
board.
maybe the board
No, we've
isn't-
never been contacted.
Maybe the
about
board
it.
isn't aware, they didn't take into consideration when school starts.
Right, and I think that's just another piece of information too. They need to know we
Sure.
make our calendar up.
And maybe it'll be,
Over a
oh
year.
my gosh, we didn't think about, it. we'll move it back, no problem, sure the board, who knows? You know, it's just keep an open mind and reach
Well,
out to them.
we've had our calendar out though for a long time. I would have thought that if they know how those things mesh or don't mesh up, that would have been something that the fair board should have been cognizant of before they set their dates.
So just,
Yeah.
no decisions or anything
FYI.
now, but I just want to make you aware because there is, everything affects everything with this.
Yeah.
So.
All right, principal directors reports. I just have a real quick question for the principals and directors who are here. How are you guys doing?
Day by day, we're great.
Day by day?
One side comes down, some side.
Use Ashley's thing, where's your lid at?
Your kiddos are hanging in there? Yeah, okay, good to know. All right, Director of Human Resources report.
I have nothing to make.
Director of Operations report.
I have
nothing tonight. Assistant Superintendent report.
I'm good.
Okay, Superintendent report.
I've said a lot tonight, so I want to acknowledge our administrators who are here. It's a team effort, and, you know, it's, everyone's filling the challenges, and, you know, good leadership helps keep that ship moving and keep morale up, and I just thank all of them. And of course, all of our staff, I've said that over and over, but it truly, until you walked in their shoes and to see the, you know, Kim and I estimate 75% of our day is spent. And I would say that Randy Judd's probably right there, Brian Todd, that you're spending the bulk of your days, and I'm tired of it. I think we're all tired of it. You know, Leslie and I were talking the other day, let's hear the good stuff, you know, what Ashley's trying to do
Right.
and what the things that happen in there, there's good things happening too.
That was one of the things I brought up to Scott, which I was glad he had Ashley come in tonight, just because every time we've had a meeting, Scott's had to inform us of one other thing related to COVID, or we get an email or a message that, you know, we're back to hybrid or whatever, and I was like, can we hear something really wonderful happening?
Great timing tonight, so.
Yeah, so that was really good to hear, so. All right, for the good of the cause?
Well,
Anything tonight?
good news, and it's something very small, but the CMS, which is very near and dear to my heart, their basketball teams actually played a home game last night, and the kids were so excited just to play. The crowd was great, people were wearing masks, they sat in their little pods. It was a really good game, and the kids were just so grateful just to play. And expend a lot of energy. The 7th grade looked really good. The 8th grade was playing without their best, arguably their best player, who was in quarantine, and the other kids really stepped up, and it was just fun to see something. Is one of the little boys says, you know, Miss Kay, this is a normal. He says, I don't like wearing a mask and I don't like doing this, but we're out playing and this is normal. And that is so important with these kids whose lives have been turned upside down and inside out with stuff that they shouldn't probably have to deal with at their ages. But we're back playing ball again, and that is such an important part of the middle school and the high school, and even to a degree the elementary school process. So we're getting there, and you know, are we orange now? Or are
We're
we
still orange, yes.
We're still orange. Say, you know, didn't love orange before.
New color code comes out tomorrow.
Bleed red and white, but let's not go back to red again.
Scott, are we on our schedule for the next week and a half? Or is that decided yet?
At this point, the high school is on, you're talking about school schedules.
Right.
The high school is on hybrid this week, and we're going to reevaluate Friday with Dr.
Okay.
White to see, we talked with Brian's talked with his staff about where they're at. The nice thing with this quarantine period dropping to 10 days, that's helping with the number of kids, the length of time out, that's a big help that, with the changes there. So optimistic we can finish this year strong and get through 2020. So we'll know Friday, I think, but hopefully.
Yeah. Count down the days.
But at least we have the hybrid schedule in place and it's working.
Right, and the whole premise, I had a parent ask me, why are you doing that? We tried to communicate that, but one of the benefits is you can seat the kids farther apart too when you have half the kids there. So you don't get into all the quarantining through the social contact, the contact tracing. That's a really big factor with it. And nothing is ideal. The best thing is to have every kid in there, but we are concerned. We're concerned there are some kids that are just not fulfilling the terms of the online learning, and there are kids who are doing hybrid who aren't fulfilling what they're supposed to. So we're watching a lot of kids because there is a concern there. But it's really about just getting smaller groups of kids at our biggest school, so we have smaller class sizes to teach that live learning every other day. That's the biggest benefit of hybrid right now.
Well, and for some kids, e-learning is just not their best way to learn. And that makes it very, very difficult. So having at least part of the time in the classroom is such a
Right, that's the
benefit to them,
benefit.
because the e-learning is just doesn't work for a lot of them.
But it's looking promising. The next school year, we will be back to a sense of normalcy. That's the hope. That's the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yep.
Is this summer, hopefully.
We will wave happily goodbye to
2020,
2020.
yeah.
Yes.
All right,
I'll make
Mr.
a
Hunt.
motion to dismiss.
Second by Dennis. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.